All right, buddy.
All right, yeah. So we're rolling right now. Um, so
Are we on? Are we recording?
yeah, everything's rolling right now as we speak.
Good. So what I have to figure out to do with a computer uh, is do this same thing. So I got to figure out how to have it flawless and be able to put it into my video software program, put in a beginning opening screen for each episode with maybe some sound effects and maybe some music at the beginning and the end, and pretty them up some, and then I'll upload them from there.
Oh
I've
yeah.
got a laptop. But the dang thing, I feel, I don't know what is up with this. I don't know if whether or not people like put bugs into my stuff, give me viruses, come in and mess around with my stuff, but like stuff doesn't work right. Like this phone, like it's not working like it's supposed to. And there'll be times where my phone will randomly take pictures of me, take screenshots without me doing anything.
Really, that
Uh,
happened to me once, years
yeah,
years and years ago. Uh,
yeah, I get that kind of stuff, and it's just weird because I don't know what to make of everything all the time, but I know that my laptop, I can't get it to connect to a Wi-Fi. I was able to get it to connect to a Wi-Fi when I first bought it, so maybe I just need to take it to somebody and have them reset it and wipe it clean, start over from scratch, and get rid of if there's any bugs in it or whatever,
uh-huh.
and start fresh from there, because buying another laptop isn't needed. This laptop's good, but it needs a fresh wipe. So I'd have to do that this week. I know the laptop has a computer or has a camera on it, and being able to connect to the Wi-Fi, I have to be able to do that, and then I'm good to go. But I like having this phone because with the phone, I'm able to hop off Wi-Fi if I have any problems and go with the, like right now, I don't even know if I'm on, yeah, I'm not even on Wi-Fi. How's the sound quality?
The sound is just okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, when you're
Just
talking
regular
about
sound.
sound quality, it's like there's so many levels of sound quality. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, this
yeah.
it barely passes. So
All right, so let's get to talking about something, man. Time's rolling. And,
right, yeah. I mean, so obviously you're some kind of a treasure hunter.
well, so
And
basically what I am is I'm just a guy who wants the best out of life. Um, I didn't always start out that way. When I was in my mid-teens, I was ready to quit. I was ready to opt out, and I had an experience with the Lord, and I realized then that there's more to this life than what I had thought. So that kind of helped set a path for me. I was still a very uh, boy. I was a wild child. I mean, you ever see that movie? What's the name of that movie where they got that kid? I think it's called Problem Child. There was like Problem Child 1 and Problem Child 2.
yeah, I don't think I ever saw any of them. I haven't had a TV in many years.
Oh, well,
But
yeah. But anyway, so it's, I had a lot of trouble. Um, I think I went to 13 different public schools, and my parents divorced when I was young, and so I was quite the little rebellious one, and I just didn't see any point. I had an abusive environment. My stepfather and my mother were, they would argue a lot, and they had a really tough time communicating. And my mom had her, unresolved, issues with the break apart with my dad when I was 6. Actually, my parents divorced twice before I was 8 the second time, 8 years old.
Uh-huh.
And so it was tough for my mom, and it was hard for her. And the guy who she got hooked up with, he had his baggage. He had came from a divorce. He had 3 other kids that the mom had. And so it was kind of like a broken environment where my dad was gone and I had this stepdad who wanted to be a dad to his kids, but yet he couldn't. And he couldn't manage to communicate well with my mom, but they did enough and they're still together. So, and I love my stepdad and I love my mom. I love my dad. And, but there was times when I was younger that, it's tough for a teenager how to work his way out of a really stressful environment, unstable lifestyle. So I came from that, and at 15 years old, I I had an encounter, but I didn't get necessarily structured in with a community of people who were able to help watch my life. I'm born on April 20th. My last name was Heye. So, by the time I was 13, I was figuring out what cannabis was. And of course, at the time, that was, well, in Missouri, age of 13, finding out about cannabis, that would have been 97.
What do you mean?
So,
Did you actually smoke it?
oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Oh my God, did you smoke it?
Well, I smoked a lot of the devil's lettuce,
Oh
man,
man,
let me tell you.
yeah, the devil's dandelion. Yeah, I got kicked out of school twice,
Mm.
or in trouble twice in school,
Uh,
for it. Yeah, in the dugout one time,
ah,
and me and my buddy were rolling a joint in the dugout, and then
yeah.
the narcotics guy, like the undercover guy who wasn't undercover because everybody knew who he was. He was just burning. He comes around with the other with like one of the guidance counselors, and they're like, we're like, oh shit, and he goes, oh shit is right, boys. Yeah. He's like, what do you got going on here? Oh, boy, this looks like some really good stuff. And then he says, so where'd you get it? And he goes, oh, I found it. He goes, oh, don't tell me that. It's not like you'd find a $30 bill blowing in the street. And he goes, no, because there's no such thing, And he goes, and it's more like a $50 bag of grass, you dumbass, And then so they took us to the principal's office and called the cops and everything on us. And
How old were you at the time?
I don't know, maybe 16,
And
something.
and you're much older than me. You're old enough to be my father.
Yeah, this was in the 80s. This was probably around 1983 or 82 or somewhere in there.
Right? 82, 83, like a year or two before I was born
Yeah.
in Texas. This was in Central
No,
Texas.
this was in California. This was in
Oh,
Indio, where I grew up in the desert. I'm a transplant.
yeah, I know what that's all about. I'm tired of being a transplant.
Oh no, not me. The best thing I could have ever done was get out of that freak show, out of the California brainwashed mindset. Just freaking just unbelievable. The just my absolute mind-numbing, idiocy that is occurring in California.
Well, now, for sure. But I mean, we're talking 80s, 1982 compared to what it's like now. I mean, it's quite different, but I'm sure even then it was a little challenging.
No, everything was cool then. I mean, actually, in the 80s,
Hmm.
everything was still cool, in as far as I'm concerned. But they started coming down towards the end because the environmentalists, were like the first to really start seizing control. And what they
Hmm.
did with the valley that I lived in which was it's called the Palm Desert Palm Springs Indio. It's where the Coachella Fest is, you know.
Now, is that in the South? Is that in Southern California?
Yeah, it's in
The
Southern
desert.
California. It's in the desert, you know, not too far from the ocean. It's tucked into
Hmm.
that nice little corner where you got mountains, you got the ocean, you got the desert. You know, you get it all in one nice little.
Is that close to San Bernardino?
Yeah, San Bernardino is a hellhole, though. You know, San Bernardino is the crotch, is the absolute crotch of the area. You know, it's just
And so, what about San Jacinto?
San Jacinto is fine. You know, it's
That's where my grandfather. That's where he passed away. He
oh, I
was in
mean,
San Jacinto.
yeah, that's it's great. If you were going to pass away, that would be one of the best places. You know, as far as altitude or what. I mean, it's a nice. It's not overpopulated. It's not a shithole. It's a nice place. um, but anyway, what I was just getting at is that California is steeped in this horrible just what I call the virus. The real virus is the freaking media, and they ramp it up in certain areas. And since Hollywood, you know, is birthed in that area, because I was born in Anaheim, you know, when I was when I was one of my earliest memories as a child was being able when I was just big enough to stand up, you know, I could look out the back window of our apartment and see the fireworks that they put on every single night at
Mm,
Disneyland. They still do it
mm,
every night at Disneyland, you know, or whatever,
mm.
you know, after the sun goes down, there's a fireworks display, and I remember seeing that as a kid.
I got a question. Is there a way to put the screen? How's your screen look? Because for me, I got a little icon at the top. Are we split on your screen, or
No,
is it mostly showing you?
on my screen, you're very large. It's like almost just it's all you, and I'm just like a small thing in the bottom right hand corner.
Oh, oh,
Uh,
okay. So it's opposite. Yeah. All right.
right.
That's good. We'll just go with that for now.
But yeah, I could send you the software that you need to get in order to do what I do. It's really the coolest thing, you know, and especially if you just have the whole Corel program and the
Let me
photo
get a
program.
pen. 1 second.
Sure.
You can see my gut before and after, ladies and gentlemen, because I'll
Uh,
tell you what, this bad boy is going to be going away.
is that right? Okay, we're gonna stick you
Get
to it.
rid of this thing.
I know. I have a friend who's an expert on making it go away.
That
Yeah.
sounds. It's that when you say it like that, it just sounds so.
No, I mean it's like poof. You'd be amazed. It would go away.
It's going to be like a miracle. It's just going to disappear.
Well, it would. Yeah, it would.
Did you catch the quote there?
Yeah, it will. No, I didn't catch the quote.
Well, that's what Trump was like when the pandemic was coming. He's like, it's going to be a miracle. It's just going to
Oh, he
disappear.
said a lot of creepy things. He's like, "Geez, I've never seen dead bodies like that before in the back of a truck." You know, he was just mocking the whole thing. He's just like he knew that they were all fake. He's just like, gee, he was almost laughing, you know, as he said it.
There's like a million different perspectives, but we can easily get off on that. But I'm learning how to focus and stay on track. Like you mentioned before, one of your weaknesses is getting off
Yeah,
track. What's the name of the software you're talking about?
Corel, C
How you
O
spell
Corel.
it? Okay. And how much is that software?
It depends on which one you get because it'll change as soon as you buy one. They'll never stop
Mm,
sending you the deals for the next thing, you know.
got
Um,
it.
but
And this
I
is
would
a platform. This is a platform recorder, so it records the whole screen.
Yeah, there's two different ones. You can get the video Corel Video Studio Pro.
Corel Video Studio Pro.
Uh-huh. And that's what I use for all my stuff, you know. But the one I use is called X9. You should probably be able to get that for cheap, you know, X9.
How much did you pay?
I don't know. Probably I paid in excess of $100 for it, but I think you could probably get it now for about 75 or maybe, I don't know. And then the photo program is just as important to me, which I use all the time, which is just a Corel Photoshop, and it's amazing what you can do with a regular picture, you know.
Corel Photoshop.
Yeah, and I didn't even know how to use it that well. You know, there's a lot of things. It has a bunch of features that I still haven't figured out how to really use, like the overlay.
Mm-hmm.
You can overlay things, and there's something I want to do where because I take in mirrored images, but you can only mirror one half of the image at a time. And what I can do is I've realized that I can superimpose both images from both sides of the image, you know, and it should provide some detail that wasn't seen before.
That reminds me of something that talking about San Jacinto, talking about my grandfather in Photoshop, and I didn't know my grandfather. My grandmother was my father's mother. And we're talking about my grandfather on my father's side. He left for California. He was working for TWA in the 80s, and of course Howard Hughes at the time. He loved to go into the shops and talk with the workers. And in Kansas City, Howard Hughes and my grandfather got to the point, according to my dad, that my grandfather told him, that they got to the point where they were eating breakfast and drinking coffee every morning before work. And then it wasn't no more than, I don't know how long it was, but sometime during those years, my grandfather up and moved. And I think he went to work at one of the research facilities that you can't talk about, that he wasn't able to talk about at the time, that Howard Hughes had out there playing with his stuff. And but I got to see a picture, and that's what reminded me of that Photoshop. That's when he was putting up those geosynchronous satellites, and or maybe it was afterwards. But I got to take a look at a picture that my dad showed me after my grandpa died, because I went out there after the fact to help my dad kind of get everything ready and get the estate ready for a sale. And so there was a picture that you could tell that it was a fake picture. If you see a fake picture from the 70s or the 80s, I mean, you can tell now. It's like, that's easy to recognize, right? But the backdrop was different from what it's like it was an image of a satellite, but it had a false background behind it.
Hey, hold on just a second. I've got to turn on the AC because it's getting too hot in here.
I noticed you've got some books there too, which would lead me to want to talk about. I got some books out, some show and tell prop books, and so I'm motivated now, like we started off the conversation, motivated to do the best that I can for my family, And so what happened with me was the Bible college years, 2002 up until around 2006, 2007, and I was 18 till about the age of 23. And there was a speaker who came. You can see this here. This man, Peter J. Daniels, the author, he came and spoke at this church where I was at. This book is called How to Reach Your Life Goals. He has lots of how-to books. I picked these books up afterwards, back in 2016, 2017. I bought them used, and I actually found two of them that are autographed by him. This one is called How to Have the Awesome Power of Public Speaking.
Right.
And How to Handle a Major Crisis. I think this one's one that's, yeah, there it is. I got his autograph in there. I paid like $2 for this thing. So how to be happy though rich, and he's like sitting on his Rolls Royce. How to be happy though rich.
Uh-huh.
How to be motivated all the time. This guy,
Right.
he came to the church where I was going to Bible college, and this is how I got into gold mining. Because when this guy showed up, he said something that I'm going to say. I'm going to repeat it back to you the best I can. But he had this spiel where he went and visited multiple churches all over the nation, and to introduce his plan to help change the world. And he introduced himself as the man who owns the only privately owned gold bullion currency. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, he supposedly got saved. Well, the story goes he got saved at a Billy Graham crusade or whatever in Australia in the 50s. And he was 33 or 35. He was an illiterate bricklayer. He had like a third or a fourth grade education. He had a learning disability, or at least he was told he had a learning disability by his teacher. But he wrote a book that's entitled, Why She's Wrong, and it even has her name in there. It's like, why you're wrong. You were wrong. But he got saved at a Billy Graham crusade, and one day he decided to come up with a vision to change the world for the next 300 years. And when I heard him speak, that was at least 40 or 50 years after that conference. And he's a billionaire now. He was an illiterate bricklayer who was into debt up into his ears, and he got saved at a Billy Graham crusade and bought 3 dictionaries and put a dictionary in his car, a dictionary in his bathroom, and a dictionary in his bedroom. And he read the dictionary back and forth for a couple of years until he knew every word. Then he started reading every book he could get his hands on every subject imaginable: business, philosophy, history, just the whole works, right? And then after a few years, he went into business, failed, went into business again, failed, went into business again. I don't know how many times, but when he came and spoke, it was very impactful because our pastor doesn't let just anybody come and speak, or that pastor didn't just let anybody come and speak. So, and the guy, he met him at a conference in Australia, and the guy says, I had a dream about you last night. That's what he told our pastor. And I want to come and speak at your church. And so he flew out on his own private jet, and, coming in looking like $1 billion and acting as though, and he taught us over the weekend how to go into business and succeed. And almost nobody that I know of picked that up and ran with it. And so when I had my falling away at the church because I committed an unforgivable sin that makes them look bad, and all of a sudden I'm the guy that's got to go. In 2008, when the housing market took its hit, was about a year after I was left. I had to leave church, asked to leave, and so when the housing market took its hit, I had a painting business. I had a HUD foreclosure home with 30 to 40% equity on the sale. I had everything paid for with cash as far as my equipment. I had 4 vehicles paid for. I had a pickup truck with a blade. I pushed snow. I had contracts in the winter. And I was working 2 jobs plus my business. And when that came, it was like a rug swept out. So I had a rug swept out from underneath me, and I wanted to know why. So that summer in 2008, I unplugged the cable, and I plugged in the internet, and I had a wireless device that was able to connect the internet to my laptop, and then I was able to put the laptop to the television screen, and I started watching YouTube videos and educating myself again, figuring out what am I going to do so that I don't get this rug swept out from underneath me again, because that was unacceptable for me. So it led me to Peter Schiff, because Peter Schiff talked about, I was willing to look up anybody and anybody who could explain what was going on, and Peter Schiff, the libertarian, and Gerald Celente, libertarian, and Ron Paul campaign helped and, lead me to my understanding that sound money is the way to go. And that I recognized that summer that, the United States is not going to be able to continue as an empire with a fiat currency. And so that was just kind of like a hiccup. In 2008 was like a hiccup. But it was eventually all going to come crumbling down. There's going to be a currency collapse. And so we're recording this video before the collapse. And now 12 years later, it's even more certain. We're at like 115% debt ratio to our GDP. There's no way we're getting out of this. The currency's never going to survive. And no fiat currency does survive, which is why the Founding Fathers in the Constitution only allowed for the states to use gold and silver as legal form of tender to pay. And so on Peter J. Daniels' website, he had said that there's 3 steps to establishing a private estate. Number 1, research and study. Number 2, diversify globally. And number 3, acquire gold and silver. So I'm thinking, I don't know how to do gold mining, but maybe I could go somewhere where they're doing that. And of course, diversifying globally, my best chance is to head south with my limited resources, my limited capacity. I didn't speak Spanish, but I'm able to read a dictionary, which so I did some study. And within like a day or two of cramming and reading and looking into gold mining and trying to determine if, because I only had one friend who was Latin American, one friend who was from Central America, one friend who spoke English, and he had just got deported after getting married to an American woman and paying thousands of dollars to attorney's fees. And the judge ends up saying, no, you're a Homeland Security threat. You have to go back down there and then file again. And so he had to go like this big loop for 2 years before he was able to come back to the States. But he invited me. We became friends on a painting company in Kansas City. And he gained my respect because the guy worked harder than me. And there's very few people that, I consistently saw that were able to work harder than me on the job site. So he gained my respect. He spoke English. He speaks English. We're still friends. We still speak today. And before he was given like 6 months in the middle of 2007. They said, you got about 6 months to get your stuff ready to go. I think he left like in February of '08. So when the summer came, I'm thinking, well, I know somebody in Honduras. And if there's gold in Honduras, then maybe I'll just give myself a go at it. I can pick up a woman on the way, get married, and make a family out of it. And if I'm successful enough, then I'll just stay there. So I looked up online. I concluded that gold mining's still going on in Honduras. And so I told my mom one day, I said, Mom, I'm selling all of my equipment, I'm selling my business, I'm selling my cars, I'm leaving my house, and I'm going to become a gold miner in Central America. I'm going to Honduras, and I'm going to marry a Honduran. I didn't tell her that I was going to marry a Honduran woman. I just said I'm going to Honduras to become a gold miner. And she thought, how are you going to get to Honduras? That's what she told me. I think it was my mom, if I remember right. And I said, well, I'm going to drive. She says, how are you going to drive to Africa? I think it was my mom. It was either my mom or it was somebody in my family, somebody in the close circle was like, how are you going to drive to Africa?
Don't worry, I'll get there. I got a jet ski.
I got a jet ski. I'm going to Honduras, which is in Africa. Yeah, but I told my grandmother. Basically, everybody gave me a different story of what was going to happen to me, and almost nobody said that I was going to be successful. My grandpa said, you're going to die when you get in there. They're going to cut you up into little pieces. They're going to kill you because you're a gringo the minute you go into Mexico. And my grandmother said, my mom's mom said, "You're not going to take your brother with you." And my other grandmother said, when you go into Mexico, they're going to chop you up into little pieces with a machete and bury you, and we're never going to see you again.
Did you ever have any reasonable success?
Well, I managed to pay my way for 5 years
Uh-huh.
with gold and what help that my family was able to help out with. And there were there was a couple missionary groups that I volunteered for during my really down times between not finding gold. I was working with some missionary groups.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, my metal detecting experience was a little bit different, or gold, because I figured, sure, gold prospecting is cool and everything, but it's way too much fucking work, shoveling bucketfuls of just wheelbarrows full of dirt, and shoveling and all that stuff, it's just too much work. But metal detecting, all you got to do is dig a little hole.
Right.
I tried metal detector before. I bought the cheapest one I could find. My first one, and it just had like the discrimination and the power. I didn't know what either one. I got frustrated.
What year? What year was that?
That was about in I don't know, 2005 maybe, or something like that. But
oh wow! So you sound like 2005. You were probably how old at that time?
I don't know, like 40, or something like that. Or I don't know, but anyhow, but so I got rid of the thing. Or I got rid of the thing, but then later on I got the itch again all of a sudden to go metal detecting. So I bought a good one. I bought a Fisher Gold Bug, and it worked really good. And then I bought a Technetics T2 Classic, which is a really good one, And I mean, they're both really awesome, And I found all kinds of shit with them, but it went from that because around here you're not going to find much of anything good, really.
They got some fine flower gold, as I'm sure you know, in the Llanos River.
Yeah, I've got a friend that does gold mining and stuff. He knows where to look for the right stones and everything. He crushes it up in his backyard and pulverizes the rocks and stuff and extracts the gold out of the rocks. But I mean, he's a friend. But so I went from doing that to actually planting stuff in the ground because I was like, fuck this, I'm going to start burying treasure. And so that's what I was doing is I had my little treasure boxes that I would fill full of my marbles and bullshit, and my little war medals and things. And they're really cool boxes, but I know they deteriorated much quicker than I thought. But a few people found them. I know some people found them. Most people didn't say anything. But I started this cult basically called the Vulcan Treasure Society that's still active today, where you can bury things anywhere in the world, That way some other swinging dick will come by with a metal detector someday and find it, and it'll have a note from the Vulcan Treasure Society. And I want to have shit planted on the moon, and I wanted to send Elon Musk when he was putting that little car into outer space. I wanted to send him a little treasure box to like put in the glove compartment, that way. But,
You got into this. You actually got into it to the point where you started burying treasure for other people to find.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was. That was the whole point of it. I didn't care about anybody their picture of finding stuff unless that it was something that they buried and somebody posted online, because the whole thing behind it was that somebody would find what you buried and they would post pictures of that on the Vulcan Treasure Society site, and that way they would gain rank. Because if you can get somebody to, because I had a ranking system in the beginning.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you said that you started a cult.
A cult, yeah. It's basically, that's what I've done my whole life. Is start a cult basically. When I was a little kid, we did. But this in particular, it's just a cult of people that would want to, because it takes a special person to bury something that's perfectly good. well, I'm not.
Takes a very
But but
special person.
but if you really look at it and think, well, it's cool, but I'm never going to wear it again. It doesn't really. I'm not going to use it again, but somebody else might enjoy it sometime, especially if they think that they're finding a fucking quarter or something or a dime or something or digging something up, and then they dig up this little treasure box full of crazy shit, and marbles and shiny shit, um, can make somebody's day. I had a little girl. She was like four, 3 or 4 or 5 or something. She was digging with a pail and shovel, right? Like she was at the beach, but she was on the volleyball court at the park in Killeen, Texas, and it was all sand. But the parents came to eat or whatever, or play in the park, and the little girl just happened to pick the exact spot to dig with her little shovel where I buried my little treasure box. Or it wasn't a box, it was a little capsule, and I had a $2 bill.
And then inside of it, you have like a letter and stuff. And
yeah, that's what I had. I had my contact information, and they posted. They're like one of the only people that did. But there's bad or shady times too, because it got to the point to where I know that the police, they were worried about me because they thought that I was burying something dangerous or bombs or something, and so. Because I was always giving clues as to where I'd buried something. Yes, I buried another one, and I would put out clues and everything as to where it was, hoping that somebody would go find it. But nobody would ever go. But one time this guy did, and when he posted the contents of the box, I swear to God, it looked like crime scene photos, just the lighting. It was like they were like on the garage floor of the department, or something like that, where the lighting was really bad, and it looked like they were displayed as some kind of evidence, I just got a really bad feeling from the guy, and he said that he came all the way from Waco, and I know he was a cop. He admitted that much, that he was actually a cop, or an off-duty cop. But he was probably one of those special investigators probably sent down to make sure that I wasn't some kind of a lunatic, bearing some dangerous bullshit, in a box. But anyway, I don't do that anymore.
I'm glad those people exist. I'm glad those people do exist who go out and make sure there's not some crazy fucking loon about to hurt people.
Right,
You know what I mean?
That's true. I mean, for all they knew, I could have fit the description, but.
Well, you never know. There's really no description on anything. It's just you find out until after the fact, and people are like, "What the fuck? How come nobody saw this coming?" It's like, well,
anyway,
because
I lost the fever because I ran out of stuff to bury, and it just wasn't satisfying anymore. The page is still up. This other guy that I know, John Heinlein, he kept posting on my page, and I kept telling him not to post anything that doesn't have to do with either burying treasure or finding treasure that somebody else intentionally buried, and he would just ignore me. And so now he pretty much runs the page, and it's still pretty popular. So I just let him kind of have it, But the strange thing about it, though, is let me tell you that there's a connection. Okay, it's actually a paranormal connection between me burying with me burying this treasure, because
cool.
I got the idea out of nowhere. It like struck me in the head.
Right.
When I was at the local park. Well, comes out to find out that the first treasure that I buried was literally within view of Forrest Fenn's father's grave.
I don't even know who that is.
Forrest Fenn is the eccentric millionaire that buried the Forrest Fenn treasure.
Oh, you mean that, like, yeah, because I've heard about other people, and so, like, maybe he's the one I've heard about.
He's the one. He's the main one right now. He just died just a few days ago.
Wasn't he the guy that they just found his stuff or whatever?
Yeah, they just found the treasure box after all that.
It's like full of nothing, like gold bars and gold coins. Millions.
Easily $4 or $5 million haul. Of stuff,
But I saw that came out in the news. Like, what was that? About 2 months ago.
Right, they found his treasure a couple of months ago, but him himself, he just died just a few days ago.
Oh wow!
Just like this week, he just died.
And he died near where you did your first burial?
No, his father His father's name is Marvin Fenn. Okay, and
Oh,
Marvin Fenn used to be the principal of the local school here. He was actually the principal and like the coach of the basketball team and everything like that. You know, I mean, and so these old pictures and everything. And I didn't know this because I went to I used to do. I've given a couple of speeches for the Rotary Club and for the Lions Club.
hmm.
And for the
Hey, I'm
Lions Club,
thinking about joining. I'm thinking about joining the Rotary Club here.
yeah, you could. You know, it wouldn't hurt anything. I don't think. You know, because they were nice to me. They let me speak
Right.
and everything. Um,
Well, I got to interact with some of the Rotary Club members in Central America, and a lot of those guys are really all about helping.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I wish I could get some help from them. They never helped me they never helped me, but they did give me an opportunity other than they gave me an opportunity to speak and to show my video because I had a crazy presentation, you know, and I gave this presentation. But anyway, after the
But
presentation,
it sounds like that was help. They let you
no, like this
speak.
they did because after the presentation, this old codger comes up to me who is like an old World War II veteran, you know, with his
Mm,
cane, you know, and he's like, "You were talking about Forrest Fenn," and I said, "Yeah,"
mm,
and he goes, "Check this out," and so he shows me on his phone
mm,
this picture, and
mm,
it's a picture of this basketball team, all in black
mm.
and white, these young kids, you know, and there was a couple people that were obviously like one guy that was obviously like the leader, you know, and he looked like a Nazi. He looked just like
Mm.
this Nazi in plain clothes. And he goes, "You know
For
who that
real.
is?" And I go, "No." He goes, "That's Forrest Fenn's daddy."
Oh,
And so I'm like, "Oh wow." And he goes, "Yeah, he's buried right there in the cemetery, you know, and because we were right next to the cemetery." And
ah,
and to come to find out that Forrest Fenn grew up here in Temple. Forrest Fenn's hometown is here in Temple. So he was raised here, and he was literally raised just a couple of blocks away from where I buried my first uh, uh, thing. And his daddy, but actually his parents and his sister are all buried right there in the graveyard, which is right literally next to the park that I was
where
in.
you were at one day and just all of a sudden you didn't even know about this guy. You didn't
Right.
even know about burying
Right. No,
treasures.
I mean, I knew about him, but I didn't know anything. I mean, it was years
You
before.
didn't know that the guy was buried, his
No,
family
I
was
had no.
buried right
There
there.
was no, he was just like this. I just kind of remembered him. Oh, that's cool. He buried treasure. You know, maybe I thought it'd be cool to do sometime, but I never. It was an idea that I never took seriously until I just got that urge. And so when I went back and I buried, I realized, and when the guy told me that, and I started looking at the map and just going, my God, it's right there. And his house is right down there because I wanted to go metal detecting in the yard. I'm like, that's where he buried the treasure in his fucking old house, you
Oh.
know.
Yeah, yeah. So you are a treasure hunter. See, I guess I'm a treasure. I guess I'm a treasure hunter, but um, my treasure was, looking for a wife
Yeah,
and a
I
family.
went on a failed mission. I'm still kind of on a failed mission with that.
Yeah, I'm like, you never know. You never know if it's a failure or not, because it's like
Uh,
it could
you,
always
you
go
don't know how many
down or
times
go
you
up.
escape danger, you know, but
Oh,
is what it really boils down to.
I have no clue,
But
and I
anyway,
have no clue.
but the metal detecting took a turn for me
Mm.
because I used to sit up all night listening to Coast AM, you know, and
I loved listening to that.
and I heard my first one. It was
Art Bell.
Michael Fitzhugh Bell. It was the interview with Jimmy Church and
Mm.
Michael Fitzhugh Bell, who has like over 250 implants in his body, and
Say what?
he has over 250 implants that don't belong there in his body, some kind of electrical weird bullshit, okay? And so one day, because I used to be a bicycle mechanic, I worked for 17 years across the street from here
Ah.
as a bicycle mechanic, okay? And
Mm-hmm.
and so one day this dude comes in, this crazy dude. He looks like Einstein on a bad hair day, right? Right. Okay. He comes walking in and he starts talking about being chased by helicopters and and the CIA's after him and everything and and he's pacing around and stuff and I'm like, dude, why don't you sit down right here and just tell me your story, while I work on your bike. I'll work on your bike, but tell me what's going on, and I'll put on my tape recorder." And he's like, "Really, you will do that? You'll put on your tape recorder and record me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I record him, and then so I thought, maybe he's got some kind of an implant in his body, And so I thought, I told him, I says, come back tomorrow, and I'll bring my metal detector, and I'll see if we can scan you if there's anything in your head or anything, So I scan him, and I made a video about it. It's my most popular video. It's called Wayne Manby Meets Technetics T2 Classic, and there's something like right in the middle of his chest, and I can't tell whether it's a malfunction, of it. But he's all here. He lives in Temple here. So then I started detecting people. I had this targeted individual call me because I'm known. I became Captain White because this freak called me, and started calling me Captain White. And I fight for targeted individuals and everything. That's me. I'm Captain White, And so it was literally this guy from QAnon is the one that made me Captain White, And he called me with all this crazy bullshit. But anyway, so then soon after this woman calls me on Facebook. She's like on Facebook going, "Oh, I gotta get out of here because they're out to kill me, and I have nowhere to go. Is there anybody in Texas?" And I'm like, "I'm 60 miles away, but that's too far." She's like, "I'll be there in an hour." And I'm like, "Oh, shit." And I'm like, "Oh shit," I didn't want anybody here because my place is a mess, or whatever. And so she came and hung out for 2 days, and she showed me. She told me, she goes, I'm a CIA MK Ultra sex kitten, and I've been programmed for sex, and I'm like, okay, and so she told me that she had an ocular, she had a camera in her eye. She is what she told me. She goes, I got a camera in my eye. It's on my retina, and she goes, but you can only see it with the aid of an ultraviolet light. And I'm like, oh. Well, it just so happens, and this is no shit, it just so happens I just happen to have my ultraviolet light right here, and because I did it, and for some for no reason, I had this ultraviolet light in the bag for years, and I turned it on just like the day before or something, like just to make sure that it was still working, and I just happened to have it right there, and so, but you can see, you shine the light from the side, and you look from the side, you can see a little square chip on the back of her retina, And so,
oh shit!
Oh, I swear to God! So because oh yeah, it records all the time, and so I'm like, great.
Fuck, maybe I'm fucking chipped and I don't even know it.
No, you could be, absolutely, you could be. I'm telling you, you wouldn't know for shit, with the way that they're doing this.
Listen. I want to talk more on that. There was this crazy fucking guy, or at least we consider him to be crazy. But now that you're mentioning this, there was this guy. I remember when I was a teenager, about the time when I started smoking weed, and he worked with my dad or something. I don't remember how it worked out, but my dad explained to me this dude that he worked with. And I think, because my dad, he worked in a factory for like 17 years, and then he lost that job, and I was with him when he lost that, just after when he lost that job, and he was trying to get other jobs in St. Joe in south end of Missouri. South into St. Joe in Missouri, and he went to work for this one chemical plant or something, and there was this guy in there that would talk, and he was really suspicious of everybody, and he said that the government put microphones inside of his teeth.
Yes, I have people that have interviewed, and not just microphones, but other devices, because so I got into interviewing these targeted individuals, but the same woman. Right, her name is Laura Jonas, and she won't mind me mentioning her name because I've made videos for her, and she's targeted, but she's an MK Ultra.
This is the MK Ultra lady.
Yes, this is the MK Ultra sex kitten, as she calls herself.
Sex kitten.
That's what she calls herself. Yeah, she's a sex kitten. And
self-proclaimed sex kitten trained by the government.
She's not as old as me, but life has been hard,
I wonder how good they taught her.
Oh no, she's basically a mule for the cartel, it's not a pretty life,
There was there was something that happened down in Honduras after because I went down there in '08, and there was something that happened in 2009 during the summer. I was in Olancho when it happened, just happened to be there. Kind of like you with that light. You just happened to have it. We didn't have it planned, and I just happened to be there when there was the State Department from the United States, the U.S. State Department, in a way, secretly, from what I gather, secretly orchestrated the removal of an elected president in Honduras, and he was, and it happened along with the political party that was in Honduras. The president had been taken at gunpoint in his pajamas from the presidential office to the United States military base, and flown off that military base, which is the largest Air Force base in Central America. It's Palmarola. He was taken from the capital of Tegucigalpa and driven over to Comayagua and put on the Palmarola Air Force Base and flown to Costa Rica and just told to stay there. They didn't kill him, and they didn't necessarily stop him from coming back, but he did come back into the country. And I was there in Olancho, and he's from Catacamas, which is the town where I was at. I was at the guy's house the night, or the next night, because the person who I was with, was family. You know how those cultures, like, you're family with everybody. Everybody knows it's a lot more integrated than it is here in the States.
I don't know that culture. I'm far removed from a culture like that.
Yeah, well, it's something interesting because I'm with this guy, and he just happens to be friends and family with them, and he goes over and wants to say hi to him, to the family, and give the condolences, and I'm like, all right, in the car, but I'm not getting out of the car because I'm not getting involved in any of this stuff. But I was there when the military shut down all the fuel. They shut down and limited to 2 gallons. They had roadblocks everywhere across the whole country. And I was able to get fuel, though, from a dredge because I asked the general in charge. And he says, where are you from? And we were real friendly with each other. And I said, I'm from Missouri. He says, and there's an Air Force base where he trained. Not an Air Force, but a military base where he trained at. I was also at that camp during high school, JROTC. And so we kind of kicked it off, and he let me get as much fuel as I wanted. I needed like 40 or 60 gallons of fuel, and he gave me the fuel. So I'm in the middle of this upheaval, political upheaval, trying to just stay the fuck away from all the bullshit. And so I had to watch. So I watched all this stuff happening, and the next 6 months in that country was rather intense. And the reason I started talking about this is because you mentioned her being a sex mule, and what happened that I saw, there was another North American there, and he had connections politically, and so they kind of used him to a degree. And brought him in. They used him to help introduce some teams. One of the people was like a woman or whatever, and she was going around sleeping with all the people who were involved in the resistance. All the people who were involved in the resistance that were still trying to say, hey, you removed this president illegally. We're going to resist and oppose what you're doing in the government. And so he was part of the resistance, and he married a Honduran woman. So like I was watching it, but like trying not to be part of it, but not able to get myself away from it. So, but yeah, from what he told me, they had this woman a North American woman that was sexy as hell, and her job was to go in there and service anybody and everybody, and get everybody's contact information and get all their phone numbers.
Collect the intel, or to get them in an incriminating situation to where they were photographed or videotaped or compromised in some way or another. Absolutely.
Yeah, they sent that team down, and I saw that, and I saw shit, man, and I'm like, part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I just want to talk about what we can do to help make the world a better place. I know that there's an incentive for people to maintain their lucrative businesses, and I'm not interested in trying to upset anyone's lucrative business per se. But I am just trying to figure out what we can do to make the world a better place for our kids, because we do have something in common, is that, we came into this world naked and we're not taking anything with us, but we're leaving our kids here. So could you have some mercy, and let's figure out what we can do to talk about the actual problems that exist in the world, but not try to hurt people who come and talk about it, and allow people to, give humanity a chance to get up on its feet in a way to where we can solve the problems instead of create more. And my vision for that is, it's going to start with teaching children. It's going to start with orphanages. You know how Carnegie started public libraries. Solomon's Treasure is going to work on starting orphanages inside of eco villages. That's what I am gathering to be the best way to help solve the problems, and teach these orphans to start with the orphanages, start with these schools, and take care of the kids that nobody wants to take care of, and give them an education, because those kids are fighters. Those kids are more desperate. Those kids are hungrier, and those kids are more willing to take the mantle the next 20, 30, 40 years when we're gone, and give them an opportunity,
But in order to do something like that is going to put you so close with the actual human traffickers, it's going to become scary.
I've already been scared.
Because they're there, and they'll try to feed on your children, and or the people that you're trying, and they'll try to fuck you up.
There's going to be people. There's business.
You're probably already targeted anyways.
Well, I had somebody contact me. You mentioned targeted. I have reason to believe that there are good people who are interested in making sure that we preserve humanity and preserve life. And I believe that those types of people do exist within the government organizations, as they should. I believe that there are people within government organizations who do not have the best interests in humanity as much as they have the best interest for themselves first, and or their partners or whatever. And so I think that it's a clash. What humanity is going through right now, if I look at it, I look at humanity as an organism, one organism that, and I would describe the organism as having a sickness, almost like lupus, where it's attacking itself, you see. So there's a cycle that's happening, and you talk about mystical experience and timing of events.
That's all I talk about are mystical experiences and timing of events. Yeah.
Timing of events and mystical. My grandmother tells me there's no such thing as a coincidence. There's only patterns that are unseen. And this is my mother's mother, and so I think I have already been contacted once regarding some juice, as the person had explained it to me. They told me, they said, dude, you've got some juice. And I'm like, what the fuck is juice? And it's street talk for juice means support, and because he was stopped in an elevator here downtown Boston, and he was asked, is your name so-and-so? And he's looking at the guy, yeah. And this guy was living in my home. He was homeless. It was during the winter. I invited him into my home and showed him the vision I had for Solomon's Treasure in 2018. And at the time, I wasn't able to open up a bank account because I had some problems. And those have been resolved now. I'm able to do it myself. But I needed to have somebody who could help off with getting the bank account set up, because you got to be able to move funds. And I had a block, so I wasn't able to. And he was willing to help get it started because, he wants to help make the world a better place. And so he was stopped in the elevator while he was going to ask people inside the city hall or a federal building what we needed to do to get started. And he found out that day that what we needed to do was exactly what I just finished doing. And I got the bank account open last week, which is occupancy permit, business certificate, and tax ID number. So I did that. But the last time I tried to attempt it, he got stopped in an elevator, and he came. I just got out of individual therapy on Broadway, and I saw him, and he came up to me, and he says, listen, I got to tell you something, man. Come with me. And he took me around the corner. I said, what is it, man? And he told me, he says, you got juice. I said, what are you talking about? He's like, you got juice. He's like, what does that mean? And he says, I was stopped on the elevator by a guy, and he knew my name. He knew who you were. He knows, he said that he knew about the patent, that at the time I purchased a patent, but I realize now that I don't need that patent. I'll show you what that patent covers, and before I go too far, 1 second. I thought that the patent had protected this, and a friend of mine was in the gold mining community until he passed away, and I thought that his patent was 100% on the up and up, and that, you know, his technology, I wanted to help use that to solve the mercury problem and help use those funds with that mercury problem for the funding of these orphanages and solve the problem and clean up the mercury and create eco-villages and help educate the people so that not only am I helping clean up the mercury, but I'm also solving the problem as to why they're using mercury, which happens to do with it fault. They don't have education, they don't understand what they're doing, and, you know, it's the only thing they understand. So trying to solve that problem, you have to do it from a holistic and that perspective, because it's a systemic problem. You need a systemic solution, which is what Solomon's Treasure I presented to that friend as being. And he told me that, well, I now know that I don't need the patent for that thing to make those plates. But at the time I thought I did, and so they mentioned to him, we know about the patent, we know about what you're doing, and he says that Chris is a good guy, and we need more people like him in the world. That's what he said that he was told. And he said that he was told that if anybody tries to blackmail me, then just give them a call. And he asked him, he said, what does that mean? Do you mean like helicopters are going to come down out of nowhere or whatever? And the guy looked at him and he says, possibly. Or maybe he said probably. And that spooked the ever-living shit out of me, and I immediately took the battery out of my phone. I told him to do that to his. We walked home a different route, and then I had to regather myself because that spooked me. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Then I told my grandmother about it, the one who likes Art Bell stuff, and she says what that's called is called plausible deniability. Plausible deniability. Which means you were contacted in a way that somebody could deny it, when that could be, I'm looking at it now, that it could be for my safety. It could be for my safety. And
what is that thing that you had?
This is just an aluminum plate, and it's been milled on a CNC router, CNC machine. And the program and the original design was put together with the combination of the original inventor and the shop who helped do the programming for the first one. and this technology was born in Arizona. A guy, the late great, I call him late great, even though him and I had kind of a falling out, because it's like, dude, you fucking lied to me, and you've been lying to everybody. And he's like, no, I'm not. And then he goes on a campaign to come up with all kinds of bullshit about me. So I just I put a hole in I put a cannonball in the hole of his bullshit lies with my Facebook page. The Gold Well Sluice was public domain in 2014 ? And the reason why he did that is because what he was doing was wrong. He came out with this design, and then more than a year after he had already started selling it, he tried to file for the patent, but then fool the patent office and say that he made an improvement. And it was just a really shady setup that I didn't discover until I was already 27,000 in with my brother and 6 months after the contract. But what this thing does, dude, is the gold ore in a slurry, your friend who crushes rock, right? Was he separating it out through gravity concentration method, where it's like how heavy the gold is?
He does both the chemical and the other version,
Right. So as far as on the gravity separation aspect, besides the chemical, this captures micron-sized gold. The original inventor had ore that with a large abundance of 1,000 mesh gold. So we're talking gold that's 4 times smaller than what you can see with the naked eye, or maybe 2 or 3 times. It's somewhere around there.
Right, sure.
And yeah, so it's like it's able to capture gold so damn fine, so damn effectively, that it's the most effective sluice box. This is a plate that goes inside of a sluice box.
Yeah.
And you've heard of the Dream Mat, David Peterson's Dream Mat. Are you into the gold?
I've seen all kinds of mats. Sure, I had some equipment. I have a little sluice box that I loaned the guy. It's like a little mini sluice box, that it folds up, and it's got a little handle on it. You can carry where you want to go. But I'm never going to use that fucking thing. And he's out there. He can be driving down the road and see a crop of rocks, coming out of the side and go, oh, fuck, there's gold in there, and go and grab a 5-gallon bucket and steal a bunch of rocks off the side of the road. And
that guy right there is perfect for this stuff, because there's been people who've replaced thousands of dollars of equipment with just a simple sluice box. There's a guy who's part of the company, the business, the original brand, which is called Goldwell Sluice. And, well, it's kind of a long story what happened how to explain what happened post 2018 when I blew a hole in the side of the ship, and where we're at now. It's kind of a big story for a conversation for later, but basically, it is effective. It does do what it does, and everybody who has one will tell you that it's definitely the best piece of mining equipment for gold recovery that they've ever had in their life. And it's replaced shaker tables, jigs. There was a guy who replaced his flotation cells, centrifuge spinners. And so, I had bought one of the boxes in 2015 when I was in the oil field. I went to the oil field into 2013, all through 2014, almost all of 2015 in West Texas, which I mentioned to you that I got my truck driver's license there in El Mott, just north of Waco. So I moved to Waco and delivered pizza, paid my way doing that, got a loan, took the truck driver's license, and went to the West Texas oil field. So in the oil field, I was making gravy, and I took the money and reinvested it back into mining equipment and education for my wife, who was down in Honduras, because we started our paperwork process for her stuff. And I bought some equipment. I helped some family members who needed money. I helped my wife with education. We got her paperwork started during that summer of 14 and 15. So I bought the box, and I had studied about it then, and I knew about it then. And the guy sold me some plates too. Bernie Mikowski sold me some plates instead of just a box. And yeah, it's the best thing since sliced bread, or whatever. And so, yeah, it works. It does what it's supposed to do. But it's kind of a pain to be able to get it dialed in. You got to know how to do it, and there's instructions on how to do it. And so I got experience doing that. But as far as crushed ore, you can run it dry. You don't even need water. So like your friend who has access to ore, if he can crush it but doesn't have water, no problem. You can run this thing dry. And there's a guy in Arizona who did that and has proven it already. I mean, you're not going to get 100%, but you're getting 80, 85, 90% of the gold. Of course, everything varies on how fine the gold is and whatnot. But in a commercial operation where, you're able to replace large pieces of equipment, catching it all on the first pass, you don't necessarily, very few people, the person told me, he said very few people are actually catching all of it. But anyway, so the thing does what it says, and it works, and everybody loves it who's got one. And but yeah, the plausible deniability story was kind of a surprise to me. But let me tell you another story that I told because I had to figure out what was going on, what these things mean, and I also have to recognize that I'm overcoming a deficit. I had a traumatic brain injury. I was in a bar 2006, I think 2007, and I got hit. I got sucker punched, and I fell. Also hit my head, and I was out for like 3 minutes. Wasn't even able to breathe. And my body came back on, but I wasn't able to breathe for like another minute, so I was there like a fish out of water trying to breathe. I couldn't even move my body. I was paralyzed. My brain had shut off, and it rebooted back on, and a couple of weeks later I was having what came to be diagnosed as post-concussion syndrome, and it wasn't because I didn't figure that out until after the fact, because I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk. I would forget what I was talking about in the middle of a sentence. I was walking wobbly like I was drunk. And it was rather overwhelming emotionally. But I've recovered a lot since then. But I'm still trying to piece things together, and sometimes I don't get it. Plus, sometimes I'm a little naive. Sometimes I'm a blonde. So I called my brother, and I told him about the story about that juice. The guy who stopped the guy in the elevator, and I'm trying to figure out how to interpret this situation. And my brother said, do you remember that time when we were down there in Honduras? Because my brother went to visit me in 2013. And let me tell you to give you a backdrop on what happened in 2013 in Honduras. In 2011, the United States sent down a group of special forces, and their job was to destroy the trafficking landing strips. They had 4 out of 5 airplanes were landing in Honduras with northbound traffic from Colombia. Of all planes that left Colombia northbound with traffic were landing 4 out of 5 in Honduras when I was there. I mean, I've watched airplanes coming down at night in the jungle where I was at dredging. And you would see all the time in the newspaper airplanes that had landed on a regular highway, and the people, I had heard the story where what they would do is they would just stop a car that's coming along, and they'd stop a car that's coming along, the first car, and then they'd give the guy a bunch of money, pay him for his car, and load up the vehicle with the product that they've got in the plane, and burn the airplane and just leave it there on the side of the highway. So you had that going on. You had private landing strips. And so they sent down a crew. And in 2013, I had seen them too, but I didn't see them do their work. I tried to stay out of that 100%. So you talk about getting close to trafficking and stuff like that. When people would ask me, they said, what are you doing here? It's like, I'm here to mine gold, and I'm here to find a wife. And he says, why aren't you in the States? I said, because I think the dollar is going to collapse. and I want to invest in gold mining, and I honestly don't want to be in the United States when it collapses. And, that's how I felt at the time. And people were like, oh, well, how do we know you're not like with the DEA? How do we know that you're not with the government? I'm like, look, here's how you're going to know that I'm not with the DEA. I don't want to know anything. Don't tell me anything you know. And don't tell people that I'm asking for anything, because I don't want to know anything about the trafficking. I don't want to know anything about the trade route. I don't care. I just want to get married. I want to find my gold. I want to start a family, and I want to have some kids. And I want to grow with my kids. And I'm not interested in getting involved with your trafficking. And so that's how I was able to survive, because, people did look into who I was, and people did ask, hey, what is he really doing here? And if I was involved in stuff, going around and asking and investigating, I would have been dead a long time ago. I would have been dead a long time ago.
Right.
I would have never survived.
Were you ever in the Army or anything?
I took the ASVAB test to go into the Air Force. Some of my friends from high school went into combat controller pipeline for the training for Special Forces with the Scarlet Beret. And one of my friends made it through the pipeline. The other one didn't. And I took the ASVAB. I took the physical. I was going to take the physical. I was training for it. I also needed to do an eye surgery. So I got photorefractive keratotomy, which was the only eye surgery approved. LASIK was not approved at the time because I'd be diving to deep depths, and I would also be taught how to jump from high altitudes. So the pressure on the eye, the LASIK wasn't authorized. But PRK, because I had glasses when I was growing up. If I took my glasses off when I'm driving, I could easily crash. I was, I guess, legally blind or whatever. My eyesight was so bad. But I could get PRK, and they reshaped the outside of my eyeball with a laser. And I think it was a Silverstein, Dr. Silverstein in Kansas City, if I remember the name right. And so I paid to have my eyes fixed. And that was a hell of a weekend, because it took 3 days for my eyes to get to the point where they weren't crying. I bought a bottle of Tylenol PM, and I just popped five or six more Tylenol PMs, and I just went back to bed for like 2 or 3 days. But yeah, I took the ASVAB, and I took and I got my eyes fixed, and I was physically training to go do the physical examination test, and I had a date set to do that with the recruiter until one night I downloaded a video called Loose Change. Which, hey, that's interesting. Here, I've got all this loose change here. Right. So I downloaded this video, but I didn't do it on purpose. I actually tried to download Superman 3 and Superman 2 or 3, and it said it was Superman 2 or 3, and I download it and I watch it, and it's like starts with these questions. And I voted for Bush, and I come from a Republican background. I have friends in the same schools where I went. Some of their parents were Democrats. My grandmother listened to a lot of Art Bell and Rush Limbaugh, and was very anti-Clinton. And so, that's what I had for my influence. Plus, the church where I was going to was Republican. You can't be a Republican church, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. But anyhow, go ahead.
And so, Loose Change, I watched that, and I had to watch it twice. I watched it twice before I could believe what the fuck I just watched. And then I said, I do not believe what am I looking at? I had to really stop and think, how can I validate what the fuck I'm looking at here? So I'm going to go take it to my mom. And my mom, she's active on Facebook and stuff too. She remembers I did this. And at the time, none of us in my family knew anything about, any questions. There was no questions. Who questioned anything?
Oh, yeah.
Loose Change showed questions. And so you start seeing these questions, and you start thinking to yourself, wait a minute, what is this? What is this exactly? And I even worked for the airport security. I was part of the Federal Wave at 2002. And I worked there for like 6 months between my time when I moved from St. Joe to Kansas City to go to the Bible college. So I'm down in Kansas City. I'm about to join the Air Force, and I'm watching this video, and I'm like, I gotta go talk to my mom about this. So I take and burn the video, I put it on a DVD. I drive up to St. Joe for the weekend, and I show it to my mom. And I said, what do you see? What is this? And she says, looks like something's wrong. I said, really? So I took it over to my friend's house, another friend, and his name is, I won't say his name, but he knows who I am if he watched this video. And we used to party a lot at his house, and his dad passed away. I'm not gonna say his dad's name either because I don't have permission to do that. But and so I didn't really have permission to say my mom's name either. But it's my mom, and it's fine. And so I showed it to him, and I said, "What did you see?" He's like, "It's fucked up." I said, "What's fucked up?" He says, "We're being lied to. That's what's happening here." And I said, "Dude, don't fucking tell me that, dude. I just got done having my eye surgery. I've taken my ASVAB. I am doing my physical training. I have a date set to go do my physical examination, and now I'm having to take a step back and wonder, do I really want to put my life on the line for this, for whatever it is that they're going to have me go do? What are they going to have me go do?" And so I started questioning that, and I said, you know what, I'd just rather pass. So I decided to pass, and that was to answer your question there in short, was I ever in the military?
I think it's a fine decision, because anymore, the military is not the same. And
well, I've talked to people since then.
It's ever going to recover. I don't think it can recover at this moment.
I've talked to a lot of people since then. I appreciate you telling me that it was a fine decision. And I've talked to people since then, people that are my age. I'm 36, and I would have went in at the age of 22 or 23 or something like that. And yeah, this was before I was in the bar and got hit. And yeah, there's very few people who come out of that and speak highly about their experiences. I've had people tell me some stuff that they went to go do that they're not in agreement with.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in, there were gays, but you weren't supposed to be gay. You couldn't go prancing around, bragging about it. There were no women on the boat. You couldn't, at least not on the combat vessel. You couldn't have a woman on the boat. And so now I see that there's like these stories of aviation ordnancemen women on the boat, and you know what it brought? It brought fucking trouble, because this one dude who was like the leading guy, he was like the leading petty officer in his fleet, and he's a first class petty officer, and he was in what became my squadron that I was in before, called the Jolly Rogers, VF-103 Jolly Rogers now. And so, but he gets busted. He was the most highly decorated petty officer of his pay grade,
Well, before you go too further, would you tell me what years you were serving?
I was in from 85 to 89.
Okay.
But anyway.
Okay, so tell me about this guy.
So anyway, so this dude gets busted. He was he was like the advocate for sexual harassment. Like for women, he was like the counselor. If you had a sexual harassment issue on the boat,
you go to him.
Eventually send you to him. Okay, so he gets busted porking this chick on the beach. It's like he's like they're at a party, and he's a first class petty officer, and then there was this airman, who was just of a lower rank, who was in the same shop or something, and I guess they got frisky out on the beach, at a party or whatever, getting drunk, and ended up go fucking in the dirt, under a palm tree somewhere. She comes back with grass in her hair and tells one of her girlfriends that she just got some cock, and then so now she demanded that everybody. There was this big call that everybody says that she was that he raped her, and she's on camera going. She's like, he didn't rape me, I wanted it, and but anyway, so he got demoted.
Okay, so here, let me get this straight. just because of the allegation, even though she says that it didn't happen that way.
Right, right. Because they were trying to get, because she would got in trouble, because you're not supposed to fraternize like that. She could have gotten off the hook if she would have just says, "Oh, he raped me" or whatever. She was like, "I'm not going to do that because that's not what happened," you know. And so, but
Right.
anyway, in the meantime, this guy, the most highly decorated, he'll never make chief because of that.
Right.
He can
Yeah,
never
well, so
actually.
here's what happened. Here's what happened with me. I was in Bible college, and the way that church system is set up, it's a cult.
Yes, yeah.
In the respect that they have hidden knowledge that only they're privy to. They're very exclusive. They're elite. They have a special mission from God that no other church has, and all other churches are inferior to them when it comes to that mission because they have the greatest mission of all.
Who at the
And no, it's a small non-denominational, charismatic evangelical church in Kansas City.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so I went to Bible college there, and I felt that I only shopped around at one other place other than the church where I was at in my hometown, which is St. Joe. And I was like, that summer I was getting ready to join a discipleship program at the age of 18. And I went and visited this church in Kansas City, and I ended up moving down there. And, but, they were very restrictive. I come to find out I was there for almost 5 years, but autonomy doesn't exist. They don't teach autonomy. You're not able to have your own opinion. You're not able to question any of the authority leaders. You're not able to do any of these things. And so they restrict a lot of that, but it turns out there was a lot of sexual promiscuity going on within the church, which happens everywhere, and it's just human nature. You got a 13-year-old kids doing it nowadays. I mean, I lost my virginity when I was 15, and the girl I was with was 13. And so, that it's really common, and even in Honduras, I mean, we just had a family member, 12-year-old girl run off with her 13-year-old boyfriend, and they got their own place now.
Right.
So teenagers having sex is very, very common. And when you try to restrict that and make it look like you have an image that doesn't exist, and it's like, oh, I'm so aghast. There was a kid having sex with another kid, or there was an adult having sex with an adult. Well, I had sex with some of the adults in my age group, but not in the church, until one person came and got my number, sent me a request to go do the willy-nilly. And I sat on that for about 6 months or so, till one day, I'm tired of being alone, and by golly, I'm going to convince her that I want to be with her. And we went and got drunk, and we tried to do the willy-nilly, but I couldn't even perform. I damn near fell asleep on her. And I almost needed to be drunk just to be able to do it, because it was just something that I knew what I was doing wasn't the best thing for me. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the best thing for her. And, so we were both adults getting drunk, and then the next day, because I talked it up like, we're going to be together and this and that, and just stupid stuff that, two young adults falling into their own foolishness. But, but we both ended up in the vehicle together, didn't hardly get anything done. The next day, I'm trying to avoid the situation because, I got to go to church on the weekend. I'm part of the youth. I'm part of the Bible school ministry. And she's one of the congregants. And she's like, hey, let's do it again after church on Friday at one of my friends' house. And I'm like, don't even want to have to touch the situation. I had to get totally hammered just to be able to lay with her the first time. And, I stopped talking to her for about a day. Then she gets really anxious. And then I finally get her on the phone 2 days later. And I'm sending her messages telling her that I made a mistake. And I think we made a mistake. And that continuing to have these relations the way we're doing and fooling the members in the church, acting like we're doing something that we're not, I just won't do. Now, I had sex with girls that weren't part of the church. But doing that and then going into church and putting on a facade was where I just couldn't cross a line, and make it at that line anyway. I had other lines that I was able to cross, but that line for some reason I just couldn't do. And so she was upset. I told her that I wanted to get some counseling from the church pastors, and I wanted to talk to them. And she says, you can't talk to the church pastors about it. I said, why not? She says, because I don't want my name being brought up. And I says, well, if they ask me, I'll tell them. I'm not going to lie to them. Well, that scared her. She got scared. And so she was hurt. She got scared. She wanted to go out more. And I stopped talking to her. And she called me like the next day. I do believe I still have the recording of the voice recorder of the voicemail when she called me and said, let's go have some coffee. Let's hang out. Please, please. I just want to, be friends. And I stop. I just don't talk to her. I don't say nothing. And she's hurt. And then she ends up telling some people about it. And then she ends up convincing herself that she was raped. Or at least maybe somebody made it seem like that, and that kind of got into the audience of the congregation. Next week, I'm getting called into the pastor's office, and they're asking me what happened because there's allegations that I raped somebody in the church. And I thought, well, now I guess I'm going to have to come clean, and I really didn't want to. I know that I probably should have went and got counsel, probably should have went and done these things, but anyway, that's life, And so I'm getting called in, and they're saying that she made allegations and that she contacted the police. But I tell them my side of the story, and I go home and I go get on the voice recorder. I record the thing of her trying to ask me to go out and have coffee 3 days after the alleged event, which I spoke with a hotline victim for people that work with women who are violated, and women who feel like they were violated do not ever contact the guy and ask him for coffee. That doesn't happen. Yeah, and that lady's 20-some years experience as a professional told me that's never happened in her career. Women who feel like they've been violated don't ever want to see that person again. So I showed that. I played that back to the pastors, and they just looked at each other, the husband and wife pastor, who are the associate pastors, brother-in-law and sister of the chief pastor, and but the noise, they knew that I didn't do it, and they knew that we messed up, and so I had validity to my story, and she felt hurt. But by that time, the word was already out, and people were talking. Why is Chris able to still be here? Why is Chris able to still be here in the church? Are our kids safe with Chris here? Which is it's a reasonable question, right? Because there's these allegations. But the church, how were they going to handle it? What did they need to do? And, I was asked to leave, and then later not allowed to come back. And
to the church?
Yeah. I was just asked to leave. But here's the thing: I went to the police department. I talked to the investigator. And I looked at the police report. And they said that she started it, but she never finished it. And basically, they were able to tell right away that her story didn't add up. And so it's like, okay, so how did you find yourself in the car with him in front of that location? What were you doing before that? Oh, we were drinking and it's not. And so and the investigator was able to see through that, she was just trying to attack me out of spite by going and make up stories. But I think she caught herself and realized, I'm going to turn this phone off. I'm on a...
Yeah.
Basically what happened to end the whole story there was she didn't press charges, and they never followed through with it. So her going to the police wasn't as if there was any type of prosecution towards me. Obviously, there was no evidence, and I think that they kind of hinted to her that if she tried to push that, she could get herself in trouble. And so she didn't, obviously. Plus, I had the evidence that showed that, hey, she's calling me days later. I mean, come on. We got the text messages. I got all the text messages, the phone calls. It's like, we both made a mistake. But the damage is already done. And I understand now, looking back, that the pastoral leadership was in a position where it was a tough call. I put them in a very, very tough situation. I did. I put them in a tough situation. And I recognize that. And they asked me to leave. And, since then, that person and I have sent her a message a couple of years ago through Messenger, and, we reconciled to some degree where it's, hey, we both recognize we made a mistake. And the church leadership has also said, like 2 or 3 years ago, they sent me emails and they were like, why don't you come back, And so I'm hesitant to go back there, though, because that's a whole nother subject. I think that they're very abusive. I'm not interested in being under the subjugation of another person and told that I'm not able to have my own independent thought or be critical of and question just because I'm not supposed to. Like that doesn't fit with me anymore. I think that's a very unhealthy environment for a human being to be under. At the time I was young, I was impressionable, I was easily impressed, I was emotionally vulnerable. So, how did we get started on that? I knew I wanted to get those beans spilt. But how did we get on that?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
But anyhow,
So,
we got kind of a late start, and so it's a little bit later, Right now, I have to kind of do some other stuff.
yeah, it's
what is
getting
that?
late. My kids are
Can you
getting
back it
tired.
up a little bit so that I can see it? Oh, uh-huh.
This is one of the 2 gold nuggets I got the last day of 2000, I think 15 or 16,
Really?
before I leased out the dredge, because I was doing the operations myself, but then I got to the point where I would lease out the dredge, and so there was these 2 pieces of gold here. I don't know if you can see them, but one of them looks like a tooth, like a canine tooth, or a chili pepper, and the other one looks like a shark tooth.
Yeah, they're
And
awesome.
So there was these two teeth on the last day, so it was like a really got a cool story behind it. And then I put these hoops on them here in Chelsea. I don't know if you can see it. It's not too good, but
Right.
and so you can see this one's hanging because I got the hoops. And these are kind of some of the last pieces of my collection. I got some other stuff. And before we end too, we'll talk about what fiat currency, sound money. What is sound money? Let's get this on the record. Sound money is money that is made of a metal that's a pure metal, a precious metal, and there's a reason why the Founding Fathers put in the Constitution gold or silver. This is a coin that was made 111 years ago. This is 111 years old, and it was minted in 1909. The Republic of El Salvador. It's 90% silver, and it is 1 Central American peso. And this picture is Christopher Columbus on the front. I found this in Nicaragua during my last trip. About a year. This I got about a year and 2 or 3 months ago, and I traded a small button piece of gold that I got from Arizona when I went to sign for the deal on that patent with Bernie Mikowski. I traded that little button piece of gold that we recovered through some agua regia chemical process for cleaning up concentrates and getting the gold with the sluice box. So I traded that little piece, and I got this thing, and then I had the silver mark go all the way around it, so the coin's not damaged. And then then this rope is hemp rope, hemp rope I found. I bought some online. But yeah, it is getting late, and I'm always seeing wear on this, and I like to show it off because this thing is just as valuable today as it was 111 years ago.
Okay. More so, yeah.
But even more so now. But if you take a look at this, this is Honduran and other foreign fiat currency where it's just paper.
Yep.
You know, there's nothing backing up that this is a Honduran.
It's worthless.
Five Lempira. It's worth wiping your ass off.
You could probably wipe your ass with it, but yeah.
Yeah, you can wipe your ass with it, or you can exchange it to people in a medium of exchange. But the thing is that it loses its purchasing power over time because the more you print, it eventually goes to where it's worthless.
It's just money.
Yeah, it's a paper form of currency that's illegal according to the U.S. Constitution.
Silver is not, yeah.
Silver's not, and so these are just foreign bills. But yeah, I've got quite the journey, 12 years, and I dove in and talked about some things. I told some people on that last video that I was going to get into some stuff, and I got some skeletons. It was kind of, you know, I'm able to talk about in a public way, in a way that I think is healthy for me and healthy for others, especially with the allegations and why my timing ended. But you know, on that subject, allegations of rape is very common, especially false ones. I found out because I talked to that lady there on the hotline, and she says that happens all the time. There's women who are pissed off at dudes all the time, and they try to come up with that. There was and in the story in the Bible, you have Joseph. He was in Potiphar's house, and he got too close, you know, to however you want to interpret it, but he got too close to Potiphar's wife. She must have been known to be a promiscuous person anyway, because Potiphar didn't kill Joseph because of the allegations. I mean, if Potiphar would have known, if Potiphar would have believed that his wife, that he actually did try to violate his wife, Joseph probably would have been murdered. You know, he would have been killed. He would have been executed. He wouldn't have been put in prison. But he wasn't. He got put in prison because, you know, Potiphar had to do something. You can't just leave the guy in charge. She's now saying that he's doing that. So it's like the cat's out the bag. Once you do that, like you said, he's never able to make chief. That guy's never able to make chief.
Exactly. He'll never make chief.
Just because of the false accusation. And for me, it was like, I'm never going to be...
It wasn't even a false accusation. It's just, even though that she was willing participant, it was a violation of the rules, you know.
And even that. Well, see, that was the same thing with me in school. I signed a contract, not a contract, I signed an agreement, which is a contract, and it said that I was going to abstain from those types of activities while I was in the school because they expected me to have a higher standard and to represent a better quality of example for others and to hold myself to a higher standard. So it was me. I broke the rules, even though it was legal for me to go do that. And so when they sent me a letter, the church sent me a letter saying that you know, I was asked to leave because, you know, I failed to fulfill my responsibilities, and so I accept that. I did. I failed, and I had to take it. So, that's it for now. Let's go ahead and wrap this up, I guess.
Okay.
Did you have any knickknacks that you wanted to show before we close this up?
No, not at the moment. Just we'll make another go at it here. We'll try to get things going like they should be, because the video quality is not very good. It's like it's kind of pixelated. Something is not quite right about it. But you know, maybe the audio. I'm sure the audio came out fine, but it's just, I don't know. We'll have another discussion here soon. I mean, we can go this week. This week, starting tomorrow, if everything works out right, I'm going to be working nonstop, you know, for quite a while. I don't know. We'll have. I'm actually going to be working quite a bit too. I've got the business set up, and one of the things we're going to be doing is electrostatic spraying inside of homes and businesses. Yeah.
We're going to be COVID busting.
Great.
Yeah. All right, brother.
Okay, man.
We're going to be in touch. I appreciate you. And so how are you going to send it to me?
I'm gonna have to I have to go through a process of editing it, and weeding one or two things or whatever. And I don't know where I'm gonna post it first. I'll probably put it on Sovereign Colonies Armed Forces broadcast.
Well, can you send me a full unedited raw version that I can make an agreement with you that I won't share anything that you don't want. I'd like to have a
I
raw.
don't care. Yeah, if I could send you the whole thing, but I don't know how. Because
Well, so what you do,
it's probably going
what
to
you
be 100
do,
gigabyte.
what you do is you get the video ready, and then you have it in a file, and then you're going to upload that to your Google Drive or a Google Drive, and then inside the Google Drive there are settings to where what you can do is make it available offline, and then you can make it available for download, for file sharing, and then you click the link, copy the link, and you can send me the link, and then I'll click the link and download it from your Google Drive. And what I will do is I will send you the same thing, and I've got a screen recorder. I can even screen record how I went through the process, so you can just watch step by step how I did it on my phone, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Okay, I'll do my best.
Yeah, we're figuring it out. I'll send you a video on how I did mine, and I'll send you the link first.
Okay.
And then if you can replicate it, that's a good way. All right, man. Thanks a lot, Pat. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right.